I pressed my back to the cold silo wall and kept my palm on the bandage. The straw still stuck to the blood. Every breath tasted like burlap. Grain shifted under my boots in slow little slides. The dry rustle came from below the ladder. It scraped closer, steady, like cloth dragging on boards. I told myself not to move. Keep small. It couldn't see. That's what they said. It smelled, and it heard. My heart beat loud anyway. I held the knife too tight and my fingers shook. Twine along the ladder tensed, and went slack, and tensed again, like something testing it. I should have left when the bar door slammed. I thought that then. I thought of the man who gave me the tip, and I felt stupid. He had straw on his sleeve and a smile with 2 teeth leaning in, and he said, "They got a thing tied up in there. You like that kind of work, don't you?" I nodded like an idiot. Now the scrape came again, and I saw the hat brim down there in the dark, just the shape of it, and the shine of button eyes catching the lantern glow I had left on the floor below. I reached down and sawed my bootlaces because the knot had begun to bite my ankle. I didn't wait for it to pull harder. I cut and the boot loosened and breathed. The twine on my wrist tugged a little too, the one I used to tie the bandage, and I ignored it. I gave myself 3 slow breaths and went back to the first mistake in my head. I went in before they raised the hymn. I had my little bottle of lamp oil, a bag of iron nails, and the plan. Slip in through the milking room. Blow out the candles. Cut what I had to cut and get out. The barn looked empty. Dust hung. Posts creaked. Straw sigils lay at the corners and one on the altar where they had a table made from a door laid on bales. They had drawn loops and crosses with straw and twine and little buttons pressed into them. I thought I was early. The scarecrow sat bound to a post. It looked wrong even then. Too much burlap over the chest. Twine knots like a rib cage. Button eyes. Hat low. Hands hung with straw cuffs. I told myself it was a prop to scare outsiders. I checked the cord they had run from the post to the altar. The cord had that waxed feel, nice and tight. I thought, cut this, and their right won't hold. I put my knife on it. The hymn started while my blade pressed. Voices came through the boards, soft and far, from out in the field. I panicked then. I cut quick, and the cord snapped, and the twine at the scarecrow's wrists went slack. The lantern at my feet flared a little and threw its shadow up the wall. I moved to the side, heart in my throat, and saw the shadow still there where I had been, standing straight, arms wider now. I looked up and it stood. It didn't get taller. It just got up from the post like it had never been nailed. The button eyes looked at the lantern first, then at me. It didn't tilt its head. It didn't say anything. It took a step, and the straw in its legs whispered. I didn't fight then. I threw the lantern at the straw sigil on the altar. It licked and burned, and the buttons popped. For a second, I felt smart. Then the twine on the ground pulled into itself. The burned ends curled and twisted and formed the same sign back, tighter. The knots weren't loose anymore. They pinched small, like fingers pinched them. I learned a rule. It didn't like you breaking what it owned. It took it back, tighter. I ran to the doors and through the bar. The bar sat, and the doors shook under one good hit. Then the bar slid up on its own, the twine on the hinges tightened, and the doors swung open like hands pushed from the other side. I said, "No, no, no," and shoved them closed again. The posts creaked. Outside, the hymn rose. I could not tell if they were blessing it or begging it. I stopped listening. I grabbed the bag of nails and the hammer and turned around. It was 3 steps away. You could smell the burlap. It had that wet sack smell, like a cellar. It lifted one straw hand and I stuck a nail against the post and hit it fast. Iron pins wood. That's another rule. The nail went clean through its wrist and into the post. Straw fell like hair. I stuck another through the other wrist. It leaned into me like it weighed nothing, and I put one at the chest. The chest took it. The nail went in, but not like wood. It was like hitting mud. The nail slid and didn't come out the back. The belly pulled it in, slow, and I lost it up to the head. The button eyes caught the lamplight again, and the light moved inside the burlap, like the nail lit something. I learned a third thing. Iron disappeared when it wasn't biting wood. I said, "Fine," under my breath, and went for the arm again. The hammer hit my thumb and I swore and bled. It tore itself free. The nail ripped out a slice of burlap and straw, and the wrist came forward anyway. It didn't make sound. It grabbed the front of my coat and lifted me enough to slam me into the altar. Straw sigils broke and flowed and formed back. The chant outside stopped, and for a second I heard nothing. Just breath. Not mine. A long burlap breath. Dry in, dry out, like wind through sacks. I got my hand on the pitchfork and drove it through the chest and into the bale behind it. That held it for a blink. It stuck its face close, and I smelled old dirt and grain. No rot, no meat, just dry. It leaned, and I felt the fork bend, and then the tines snapped, and I had 2 iron sticks and a loose monster. I don't remember making the choice to run to the silo. I just ended up there. I pulled the heavy door and swung the hook into the hasp. It felt safe, because it had a lock and thick walls. The grain inside had a ladder running down the curved side. It was old. The rungs creaked. I slid down too, and then the grain under me shifted and my bad ankle rolled. I stabbed the knife into a seam and held while the whole floor moved like a slow river. The scrape came up the outer wall and along the door. Something tugged at the hook. The hook bent without noise. It was just different when the twine tightened as it pulled it. I climbed 3 more rungs and pressed into the curve. The bandage knot on my arm dug in, and I looked and saw the loop turning on its own. I put my teeth on it and chewed the knot loose and spat it. Blood ran warm and then slowed. The twine still moved. I wrapped it around my elbow and tied a bow, just to watch. The bow pulled into a knot again. "There we are," I whispered, like it helped. A little laugh came out that wasn't right. I stopped it. Something fast brushed the rung below my foot. I kicked, and my heel met straw. It didn't flinch. It climbed like a spider, knees and elbows. The button eyes caught the thin light under the door, and they didn't blink. I had to move. I slid to the floor again because it was either fall or get dragged, and the grain swallowed me to the ankles. It gave a noise like rain. I slogged to the other side, knives in one hand, nails rattling in my pocket. I felt stupid about the nails. Nowhere to pin it in there, but I kept them, because habits kept me alive before. The door gave and then swung. The hasp ate the hook and spat it into the room, and it landed near my heel. The scrape came in. It stopped like it smelled me. I held still. I could hear the posts outside the silo creak, and I could hear the wind in the broken boards of the barn, but old barns made a lot of noise. It made more. The dry rustle moved toward me. I threw a nail at its face. Stupid. But it stopped for that small blink. I ran past it in the grain, and it caught my coat again, and I slipped out of it and left the sleeve in its grip. I hit the ladder and went up. It grabbed my loose bootlace and it pulled, and the lace tied itself around the rung and caught my ankle like a snare. The knot clenched. I hung by one leg with my head down, and the blood went to my face. I sawed the lace with the knife and cut skin with it too. When the lace broke, I hit the grain and it puffed up and got in my mouth, and I swallowed dust and wanted to cough but didn't. It came up the ladder behind me again. I threw myself through the door and into the barn, and I slammed the silo door and jammed a pitchfork handle in the crack. It would not hold. I didn't stand there and wait to see. I ran for the altar, for light, for anything. Over the altar, someone had left a note tucked under a button. It was old brown paper. I saw it before, when I threw the lantern, but I hadn't read it. I slapped it flat with my palm. It said, in quick hard letters, "Knots hold, not twine. The turns. 3 for heart. Cut only at post. Iron through wood. Do not free it." The handwriting pulled at something. Same slant as the tip on the gas station receipt. Same way the T had a little hook on it. My stomach went cold. I had done the one thing it told me not to. I had cut the cord. I had freed it. The hymn started again outside, low. It sounded like they were moving around the barn. I heard boots and straw. A hand hit the door and slid. Another. No one came in. They were letting it work. I understood then. I had not been a problem for them. I had been a tool. They needed someone dumb enough to cut the line when it counted. I said, "You sons of bitches," under my breath, and grabbed the hammer. It came out of the silo door without hurry. It stood in the big room and looked at the altar. The button eyes didn't change. I could not tell if it saw me. It moved toward the table like it knew where I would go next. The straw sigils there made tight little sounds, like teeth grinding. The twine along the rafters drew taut in a wave. The barn felt like a throat swallowing. I picked up a fallen plank and dropped it between it and me. It stepped on it and sank for half a second. Enough for me to jump to the side. I hit the post with my shoulder and pain went up my neck. I spun and drove 2 nails in low, just above the knee joints where the twine wrapped the straw. Iron through wood. It pinned that leg. It pulled hard and the wood groaned and the knots up the post tightened. That was the thing. The knots were the thing. The turns. Not the rope. The turns. I drove 2 more through the other ankle into the post. It did not cry out. It did not swing. It leaned and reached. It could still move enough to scoop my arm and pin it to my chest. My knife hand went numb. The twine on my wrist coiled. It was like tiny hands wrapping the loop. It hurt bright. I slammed my head into its chest because that was the only thing I had, and the burlap scratched my forehead and I smelled the inside of an old bag. Dry. Clean. Wrong. I grunted, 3, because of the note. 3 for heart. I looked at the chest. The twine there crisscrossed in a pattern I hadn't seen in the rush. Not random. Loops over and under, 3 turns in the middle that made a little bulge under the burlap. A heart knot. My hands worked on their own. I bent the knife inside the cross, slid the tip under the 3rd turn, and pulled. The twine pulled back. It tightened hard enough to bite the steel. It bit my fingers. The knot began to pull smaller. It was going to pull back into itself tighter like the sigils had. I couldn't let it. I jammed the point in deeper and felt it catch rough. I twisted and the turn rolled over and the burr came undone. The knot opened like a mouth and a little hiss of grain dust came out and hit my face. It let go of my arm. The fingers of straw went slack for that blink. I tried to push through and finish it, but the bandage on my bicep jerked and cinched so hard I saw white. The twine I had tied around my wound turned and cut in. It felt like teeth in my skin. My belt pulled too. It caught me across the ribs and squeezed. I couldn't breathe. I knew then the last rule and I hated it. It used whatever you tied to you. It had been working on me since the ladder. I dropped the knife and grabbed at my arm and tore the bandage with my teeth and nails. It came free in a hot slick and my blood ran. I slid to the side and got my palms on the chest again and reached for the rest of the heart knot. It fought me. It tried to crawl back into a smaller shape. I said, "No, like that ever helped," and I heard the hymn go quiet outside. All at once, quiet. They were listening. I found the second turn by feel and cut it with the broken fork tine I still had at my belt. The iron edge bit. The turn loosened. The chest sagged. Straw fell. It tried to grab me with the hand that still had a palm. The twine at the wrist tightened, but the iron through the wood held. The whole thing moaned like the post when it shifted in the wind. The moan came from wood, not from it. It had no voice. One more. 3 for heart. The last turn sat deep. I pushed under it with both hands and my nails split. The burlap rasped the backs of my fingers. It leaned, and I leaned back. We were stuck like that, shoulder to chest, my knife gone, my arm raw. I had the last turn on the tip of the tine, and the twine line on my neck from my belt loop cinched, and I felt the blood pound in my face. I couldn't see for a second. I said out loud, "They used me because that gave me a little anger, and anger is energy," and I pulled like I used to pull line through a block, and the turn flipped. The knot broke. The chest fell open, not like a person. There was no meat. The burlap split and straw poured out in a flat, soft rush. The button eyes tilted down for the first time, like weight left them. It sagged on the iron nails and the post took its fall. I backed up, dry heaving. My belt loosened slow. The bandage twine hung limp. My vision came back in red around the edges. I took 2 steps toward the door. No one stood there. The hymn didn't start again. It was too quiet. I waited for boots. Nothing. It didn't move for a count of 10. The arms hung. The head leaned. I did not trust it. I picked up one more nail, the long one, and I picked up the hammer with the split handle, and I did what I should have done first. I drove that nail through the heart place, through the burlap and straw left there, into the post hard. Iron. Wood. It rang. I stood there and breathed the burlap breath out of my lungs. My hands shook hard enough to clatter the hammer teeth on the floor. I laughed once and stopped it. I looked at the note again on the altar. The T's had that little hook. The J's dipped too low. Same as the receipt in my pocket with the time and the address. The one the tip came on. I pulled that paper out and laid it next to the note. They matched. I said, "Of course, not to anyone." I didn't have a good ending after that. I watched it hang and I did not look away. Straw settled. The twine at my neck eased more. I made myself stand. Then I heard the slow, dry sound again. Not from the chest. From the post. From the nails. The twine knots around its ankles turned a little on their own. They tightened. Not fast. Patient. The knot in the heart place under the nail rasped once against the metal, like it found a new turn to take, and the burlap near my cheek brushed my ear. I felt the smallest pull on the loose string at my collar, just a touch, and I heard the rustle, slow and close, as if it learned me when I learned it. I kept my eyes on the button eyes, and I said nothing. The nails held. The turns pulled. I don't know which way it went after that. I walked until the hymn was a memory and the fields were just dark. I still can't sleep with a knot in reach. I hear it tighten in the night, close to my ear. Don't just sit there. Subscribe. Hit like. That's how you show me you're still out there. Do it now, before the next story starts without you. See you in the next one.